Hello, hello, Insta family. It's Dr. T here. Tuesday, a little earlier than normal, 5:30 Perth time, 8:30 East Coast time. And we are live with Stef Valakas, who is the dietologist. And I think she's coming on. So now I've got to figure out, this is where I show my age. I've now got to figure out how we add Stef to our Insta. But before I do that, I don't know about you guys, but I've just had one of those days. Honestly, I thought I'll go home, I'll get some makeup on. Oh, thanks, Stef. She's already shown me how to add her. I thought that I'd be all ready to go, have my questions ready, and then the proverbial hit the fan. And so you've got me au natural. I've run in from PCH, crazy town, and my desk is a mess, but that's okay because we're going to bring Stef, the dietologist, on to chat to us live. Now, I've hit the button, Stef. So I'm hoping that you see my little, hey, come join us. There she is.
Hey, nice to see you.
We did it. I did it. You're an old hand at this, whereas I'm a relative novice.
Look, I may have done one of these earlier today, and I was on your end, so it's fine. It's a little bit more stressful when you're the one initiating it too.
I know. And like I was just saying to everybody, I'm completely out of sorts, completely hot mess right now.
Hot mess express is my personality trait, so it's fine.
How are you?
I'm right there with you. I just slapped some lipstick on so I look put together, but inside, don't feel
you
put
at least
together.
got that far. I didn't even get the lipstick on. So. How are you? How's sunny Sydney?
I'm good. Sunny Sydney has been sunny, which is really delightful. I'm good. It's a busy time of the year for us. Downhill run into the end of the year, and everybody is scrambling to get appointments. People getting pregnant, want to check in. So it's just been, getting IVF teed up and laparoscopies teed up, and so everybody's scrambling to get the last few spots. So busy, but all is well. Yeah,
good. Yeah, I always find I get to Christmas Day and I'm like, what just happened? Where was December?
The 6 weeks before is brutal.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that champagne on Christmas morning.
Well, for sure. Absolutely.
Hey, so just because I felt like it, November is Fertility Nutrition Month.
Oh, great. I thought that was official month and I was missing the memo and I was like, wow, I really should know this.
No, I just made it up. Fertility month.
I love
Fertility
it. Thank you.
Month.
I love it.
And I am so excited. Stef, to those who haven't met Stef Valakas, did I say that right?
You did good, yes.
Well, close. He's from The Dietologist, and we did a podcast together a few weeks ago on your podcast, which is Fertility Friendly Food. I love that alliteration. And I think it went off. I think it was kind of popular, wasn't it?
It did. It was very popular. It's still very popular. Yes, that podcast was super popular. So it was all about progesterone, which I knew was going to be a great topic. Progesterone, conception, IVF, miscarriage, pregnancy, the role of progesterone in your menstrual cycle. And I think we ended up charting in the top 100 episodes for nutrition. So that was very exciting and you were a delight and of course explained everything so beautifully, which is why everybody stuck around and listened to the whole pod.
Oh, I'm glad. I do love talking about hormones. So it's good fun.
Lucky it's your job.
Exactly. But that kind of got us talking about the opportunity to collaborate a little bit more. And Stef has this amazing online fertility dietitian business, which has just gone gangbusters. And so I thought I'd just invite you on, number one, to talk a little bit about your business, but also I get a lot of questions from patients about the role of food and the role of the dietitian. And I reckon the best place for us to start is always at the beginning. So the first question I think a lot of people really are not sure of when they're first navigating this space is how did you get to where you are as a dietitian? But also, what's the difference between an accredited dietitian,
a nutritionist. People also find web pages now for nutrition coaches. Can you just tease that out a bit for everyone?
Yep. I'll start with the second part of the question first, and then I'll go into how I got into this space. So an accredited practicing dietitian, or APD in Australia, we're the only country that uses that term around the world. Everywhere else it's called a registered dietitian. So if you're tuning in from anywhere but Australia and you're like, I've never heard of that before, it's the equivalent. But that's the highest level of qualification in nutrition that you can get in Australia. So that means that your dietitian has done 4 to 5 years of university training, and they're also being regulated by Dietitians Australia, which means we have to do our CPD and abide by a code of conduct and all that kind of stuff. So the way that I like to talk about dietitians is in relation to another type of healthcare professional that people tend to understand a bit better, which is a dietitian is to nutrition as a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist is to exercise and movement. So that's kind of like you're in that allied health space. So dietitians can actually work in hospitals. We're recognised by Medicare, we're recognised by private health funds. So we've got that kind of wider recognition by the government as the foremost experts in nutrition, and there's no higher qualification than an APD to practice in nutrition. All dietitians are nutritionists. So I am a nutritionist, everyone on my team's a nutritionist, but it's considered like not a lower qualification, but it's in the hierarchy. If we go hierarchical, it's a lower qualification. So a nutritionist isn't more qualified than a dietitian, it's the other way around. So we wouldn't call ourselves by that title because it doesn't really make much sense if we've got a higher title, if that makes sense. But nutritionists, there are university qualified nutritionists who are excellent at their jobs. They are typically registered with the Nutrition Society of Australia. They may go by registered nutritionist or RNUTR. That's how you can tell that they've gone and done some additional study. You can check what degree they've taken and so on and so forth. There are excellent nutritionists and there are not so excellent nutritionists. Welcome to the world of healthcare professionals. That's the spectrum that we all fall on, no matter where you go. So, take of that what you will. They won't necessarily, you can't get a Medicare rebate. They can't work in a hospital, for example. And some private health funds will recognise this in some way.
Just to jump in there, they're not necessarily really dealing with pathology per se. They might be just sort of tweaking health and wellness. Would that be fair to say?
That is the correct definition. I would say like that is the technical scope of practice, but I think the reality of scope of practice and the technicality are probably wildly different worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got nutrition coaches or health coaches, and certainly they are the ones that have probably a little bit more wishy-washy kind of qualifications. You know, you can be a nutritionist in 6 weeks or a nutrition coach in 6 weeks online. And I spent 5 years at university and too many thousands of dollars to count to be where I'm at now. So, definitely will grind any dietitian's gears to hear about nutrition coaches.
But they're out there.
Sometimes they're charging like quadruple what dietitians charge. And you're like, they what now? What is happening?
Yeah, and so really people within the fertility space want to be, at the very least, looking at a nutritionist, but really probably a dietitian, because we are in the world of infertility, recurrent miscarriage. We're dealing with something that's not quite normal, so technically something that's potentially pathological, and so really want to be working with someone who works in pathology,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people aren't really familiar with the background that a dietitian needs to actually go through to get our degree. Like the first 3 years of our almost 4 years of our university training, we didn't even talk about food or nutrients yet. We're doing the same stream of medical science that all the med kids are doing at the same time. So we're learning about genetics and physiology and anatomy and dysfunction in pathologies and all these kinds of issues and psychology, and we learn biochemistry and all this stuff first, so that by the time we get to nutrition, we actually layer that on top. We actually understand that in the context of both function and dysfunction, what's going on. So it's more than just, hey, eat some fruit. Like, I mean, we say that a lot, but like we actually understand what that then is doing on all different levels that need to be considered. And I think the most important thing is the way that we are taught to critically analyze and evaluate literature and scientific literature, because once you have that skill set, that is so, so valuable for the rest of your life as a clinician, as a practitioner, to be looking at the data and knowing when to apply it and when not to apply it, and how to make it work in practice as well, that translation piece, which I think is the best skill set that you can get from
totally. And I think the same as a CREI. You know, I've done my ANSCOG, that was, 6+ years of grueling work, and then on top of that I've done that was on top of a medical degree, and then on top of that my 3+ years of fertility training, and so I feel like I've got those essential nuts and bolts for really being able to tease out, because there is a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of fringe literature that is not great quality around therapy techniques, practices, that when people are really struggling and they've been struggling in the fertility space for years, they're going to be grasping at those sorts of things. So it's important for us to be able to use our critical analysis to be able to then help guide them through, well, could that be you? And is it appropriate to apply that to you?
Yep, totally. And I think that's like the beauty of, and that's like the art of what we do, is there's so much science to it, but I always say there's an art, because the art form is knowing when to apply it and when not to apply it. And sometimes that is not determined by an algorithm or a flow chart or a, something that you can just go, yes, no, boop, boop, yep, spit out, done. It doesn't really work like that, because we have to take into account so many different factors before applying things to you.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love that. Great. Now tell us more about how you got to the point of becoming like a fertility dietitian. So you're kind of a specialty, really.
Yeah, it is. It's super interesting, because in our degree you do not learn anything about fertility. I think we did 2 slides on PCOS. Never heard of endometriosis. We didn't talk about thyroid dysfunction. We talked about pregnancy and just like the basic micronutrient requirements, energy requirements, food groups, just guideline to healthy eating stuff, but we don't actually learn about it at uni. So the way I got into it was backwards, which, is a classic Stef move. I fall backwards into things sometimes. So I want to be a pediatric dietitian, so children's nutrition. So I started working in that space. I was seeing a lot of kids, variety of different issues, gastrointestinal allergies, intolerances, fussy eating disorders, a whole bunch of different things. And I always thought that was going to be my long-term career, and was very lucky to get into that space pretty early in my career. And with time, I started to realize that a lot of what I was seeing with kids, when I started asking more questions, because you're not talking to kids most of the time, you talk to parents. When I started asking more questions of parents, I started to learn what happened in their pregnancies, what happened before they fell pregnant. They needed IVF, or, all these, the backstory of how their child came to the forefront. And I was like, wow, this is super interesting, because I'm noticing like some stuff happened to you in pregnancy that was like a big deal medically. And it's interesting that now we've got these particular issues. Like, it's just interesting that I'm seeing these links. And it harked back to my studies at uni, where we learned about Barker's hypothesis and the first 1,000 days of life, and the impact of epigenetics, which is kind of that we can't change that DNA code, but the way that our genes are switched on and off with different little tags or light switches, if you will, is actually really important. And your diet and lifestyle and your environmental exposure, your sleep, your stress, your exercise, all those things can flick those light switches on and off. And so I was starting to see it in real life. Like, I understood the theory behind it, but I was starting to like see it clinically. I was like, wow, I wonder if it's like epigenetics. Like, this is so cool. Like, obviously everything's multifactorial and there's more to it than that, but it piqued my curiosity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I think it was 2018 when that Lancet preconception health big series of papers were published, which, if you're in the field, you may be familiar with, because they were probably some of the most famous papers about preconception health that we have. And it really just talked about how this needs to be public health priority 1, that preconception health is how we are going to basically help the next generation avoid chronic disease, reduce the risks of things like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and eczema and allergies and obesity. and all these health conditions that we were seeing in hospitals, and we have clinics dedicated to, and tertiary health systems that pouring millions and billions of dollars into management. But like, if we start in, you know, even from adolescence and educating them about their health and well-being and their menstrual cycles and things like that, and young adults and adults who are trying to conceive and people who are seeking help to become a parent, that if we intervene then, we are giving not only them a best chance of conceiving, which we'll talk about in a second, but just having a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby, and the risk reduction that we get from that. And that is potentially an intergenerational effect of nutrition and lifestyle. And that was when I was like, what the heck? Why is nobody doing this? And people were doing it, but there was very few people, and I knew that the number of people struggling with fertility concerns or who would be interested in optimizing their preconception health once they knew about it would be much larger. So I went and did some more training with Melanie McGrice down in Melbourne. She ran one of the first courses about it. I was there on the first day that I could be there. I was there. And I learnt about it, and I just felt like I could not go back home to Sydney because I was in Melbourne. I couldn't go back home to Sydney knowing nobody in Sydney was really practicing in this area, dedicated, that so many women that I was seeing were feeling misheard or misplaced in the health system because they had conditions that they knew maybe nutrition could help with, but they felt like they had no one really to turn to. So I just was like, I can't go home and not just go back to my normal job. Like, I have to start in this area. So I started basically just knocking on doors of doctors like you, being like, hello, I think I want to work in fertility nutrition. Send me your patients, basically. And yeah, it was a mixed bag, certainly. And, you know, it's not even that long ago, but even a few years ago, fertility nutrition did not have the profile that it does now. You know, I was the one going in and being like, here's the papers, here's what the science is. And there was a lot of skepticism, both by clients and doctors, and often the doctors would reflect their skepticism in their patients. So by the time they got to me, they were like real skeptical. Like, it was such a different time than what we have now. And then over the years, that kind of interest grew and grew, and it turned into a much bigger business. But it also became personal for me. I was always very interested in fertility from a very young age. I was always thinking that maybe I would have fertility issues. I had no reason to think that. I just always felt like I might. From like 5 or 6, I was telling my mum, like, how do I adopt? Yeah, it was very interesting looking back. She's like, I don't know where you got that concept from, but you know, you were just curious about it from a very young age. And it was through seeing clients that I worked out that I had endometriosis, because I started to tee up that a lot of the symptoms that they were saying that I had been putting off for years and going to doctors and, you know, not quite getting where I needed to be. Yeah, I just went and I was consulting in the CREI's office, and I said, who's your best endosurgeon? And she said, cross the hall. And I said, okay, make an appointment. And he was like, when do you want to come in for a surgery? I'll check you out. And I was like, great. So, I mean, I didn't have to fight for surgery, and I went in at stage 2 endo. And yeah, so that really kind of then fueled more interest in the endo space. But certainly I was practicing in it for years before that as well.
Amazing.
Anyway, that was a very long story. Sorry.
No, I love hearing stories like that, because you'll find with most doctors and healthcare professionals, they kind of probably had a bit of an interest through to personal experience or family experience, or they've just come across a really awesome mentor that then really inspired them to go into an area. So that's a great story. I love it. And you can really in this, which is good. So on that, how then does a fertility dietitian or someone interested in that space help women in the reproductive health space? And look, and men. Let's just address that as well.
Yes. Very
important. Biological or otherwise. How do you help?
Yes. Okay. So the way that I like to think about it is like, if we do a little flow chart in our brains, there's 2 kind of groups of people that we help. There's the people that are proactive. They don't know that they have an issue yet, or they don't have an potential issue, and they just want to improve their health and well-being before they become parents. They've read about preconception health. It's really important. the first 1,000 days of life, and they're just like, yes, what do I need to do to make sure I'm giving my baby the best start? How do I have a healthy pregnancy? How do I support myself in this awesome life phase? Tell me. That's group one. I would say there's a lot of this group, but I would say my personal diary doesn't really reflect this anymore. My personal diary definitely reflects the second group, which are people who are experiencing delays to conception, on long fertility paths, or are approaching fertility treatment, or they've done lots of fertility treatments. Maybe their budget's kind of run out on that side, or maybe they don't want to pursue that path anymore for whatever reason, and they're thinking, I'm still going to try naturally, unassisted. What can I do to optimize my chances? I would say they're my two key groups. And then within those groups, then you find out other stuff. So PCOS is a big cohort of clients that we see. Endometriosis is a huge cohort of clients that we see, obviously, especially with my additional personal interest. Thyroid dysfunction, male fertility, recurrent miscarriages. So, and if we can even go down into even more smaller categories, people, autoimmune diseases, celiac disease, this inflammatory bowel, and all those conditions can impact your fertility. And all of those conditions are potentially optimized through nutrition. Now, I think what people sometimes think is that medicine is here and nutrition is here and there's no crossover.
Yeah.
But what's really important to remember is that I'm not saying I'm going to replace what Tamara is doing in her practice. I'm saying I can help complement what you are doing medically to give your doctor and your team the best raw ingredients that they got to work with. So, if your eggs are as healthy as they possibly can be, I can't put you in a time machine and make you go from 42 to 22. Nobody can do that. If we had that, we would all be, we wouldn't be here. We would be very rich and we wouldn't be doing what we do. But the reality is I can't put you in a time machine, but what I can do is I can try to make sure that those eggs in those few months leading up to either fertility treatment or conception, that we are protecting them as much as possible from oxidative damage, that follicular fluid is packed with antioxidants, because we know that makes a difference. That if your metabolic health isn't the best, let's get that in shape. If you're insulin resistant, let's improve that, because that's not only going to help you conceive, but it's going to help reduce your risk of gestational diabetes once you do get pregnant, your long-term risk of type 2 diabetes. If your thyroid is dysfunctional, you might be feeling confused about what prenatal vitamin you might need to take. We can help you with prenatal vitamin selection. How much iodine is too much? How much iodine is not enough? You've got to count it from your food, and this and that. And so there is a lot to it. And then that's just like navigating the known factors. Yeah. And then you've got social media and blogs and Facebook and groups telling you to go gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, soy-free. You're doing this wrong. Don't take that vitamin. It's toxic, blah, 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 blah. And then you get to this space and you're just like, oh, my God. Just chuck it all in the bin. I'm done. And so people come to us in the kind of, I've tried stuff on my own. I have done some research. I'm getting very stressed about whether I'm doing things right or wrong. And I just need someone to clear it all up for me. So a lot of what we have to do is actually undoing things and unteaching people things as much as we are doing teaching and learning. But a lot of the principles are around egg quality, sperm quality, of course, male factor fertility, such an important thing. We just did a whole 1 hour session on that earlier today. So if you want to go check that out, go check that out.
Podcast.
Yeah. Oh, live on our Instagram. Yeah. Candid. Yes. It's so good. Yes. So male fertility is a huge thing. We want to make sure that sperm quality is great. If you're not ovulating regularly, nutrition and lifestyle are the biggest modifiable factors to get you ovulating more regularly, whether it's because of PCOS, whether it's because of hypothalamic amenorrhea, where you've got a suppression of that hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis because of inadequate energy intake, excess energy expenditure, over-exercising, under-eating, chronic stress, brain just goes, no more ovulation, please, or irregular ovulation. Reversing that is all dietitians' job. The dietitian's job, step in, help you. But it seems very easy on paper. Those people just need to eat more and stop exercising. it's not that simple. There's a lot of mind games that comes with changing our lifestyle. It is not as simple as just eat a few more vegetables, because you'll do it for 3 days and then what? Gets very boring very quickly. You're sick of spinach after 3 days. You're like, I don't want spinach no more. So it's important to, like, yes, sometimes the strategies are simple, but the implementation can sometimes be very, very challenging. And it can be as simple and as complex as you like. You know, some people are asking me, how much vitamin B6 do I take to boost my progesterone? Very specific question. And I've got clients who, you know, are just struggling to get 2 serves of fruit and a few serves of veg on their plate every day. We can have this level of extremes.
Yeah.
So yes, a lot of variety in what we do, but I would say a lot of what we see other people experiencing delays to conception, approaching fertility treatment, have done lots of fertility treatment and haven't gotten the outcomes that they want. And they're kind of at this point of like, I'm spending a lot of money on IVF.
Yeah.
If I can be doing something to give the embryologists and the doctors better raw ingredients, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing.
And I reckon the other thing too, Steph, I mean, I have noticed over the 10 odd years I've been doing this, that more and more couples, both men and women, are asking that question, what can I do? Like, gone are the days where you just had your medical condition and you handed it over to the healthcare professional, i.e. the doctor, and the doctor just kind of patriarchally took it over and managed it for you. I think a lot more people now want to be empowered. They want to be part of the process. And I do think this stuff is where they can play. The other thing too is that you almost assume a bit of a coaching. I don't want to use that term because I think it demeans what you are, that anchor point for them where perhaps their fertility specialist is not as easily accessible, and they're not tapping in with their fertility specialist maybe as much as they might be tapping in with you with regards to, you know, dietary plans and lifestyle goals and, you know, the tweaking of things. So I think that
and just listening to their story.
Yeah, and the time. And I do think there is an element of, how do I term this right? Not arrogance, just it's okay for fertility specialists not to understand all the nuances of nutritional management. I'm happy to say I don't know. I didn't study nutrition apart from a few units at university and then, you know, what my own reading around epigenetics and so on. Most of us haven't studied it in any great depth. So to be able to lean in to your knowledge and expertise, I think is entirely appropriate. The fertility journey is not about one practitioner. It's about an entire team.
Totally.
What is that saying? It takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
Literally, it does in this scenario.
And make one.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's something you summed it up so beautifully. There is something sometimes so disempowering about a fertility journey that you feel at the helm of, like, you feel like you're at its mercy. Like, it's just taking you where it's taking you. You don't know how many eggs you're going to get. You don't know how much is going to fertilize tomorrow. You don't know how many embryos you're going to have on day 5. You just like, let the chips fall where they may. And a lot of people, and people who have, you know, type A personalities and people who have done really well in their careers, and they struggle to come to terms with, hey, you know, this is something that I can just put in X and I'll get out Y. It's not a direct relationship like that. But then if they think about, what can I control? I can control how I sleep. I can control how I eat. I can control how I exercise. I can control how I think about things. I can, you know, meditate. I can take my meds on time. You know, all these other things. That being said, I also see the other side of the coin of that, where it becomes an obsession, and that's a whole different.
Totally.
Slippery slope. But my point is, I think a lot of people find it empowering to take back some of that control element and feel like they're participating in their own healthcare, like you said, in a positive way that is not going to hurt their health in the long term anyway. I mean, the worst case scenario is you walk away with a better diet and better health overall. Oh no, disaster.
Yeah. But also, I suppose you're in that unique position to then be able to identify when it becomes a bit obsessional and pull them back from that. Because you're absolutely right. There are some people who can't possibly have a piece of chocolate. I might, you know, my embryo transfer might fail because of that piece of yummy Cadbury chocolate. So you are also in that position to help guide them through, well, do we really need to be worrying about that?
No.
Yeah.
I think helping people zoom out and find that big picture. And like you said, that's where we come in more in that coaching capacity to be that person that you can touch base with. And the amount of conversations that I have with clients where they just want someone who isn't maybe their partner, or maybe they're going through it alone, if they're doing, you know, solo motherhood by choice, that they don't have somebody who gets the ins and outs of fertility treatments to talk to just about what they're going through, and just say, hey, I've got a transfer coming up. You know, is there any, I know I'm already doing ABC. Was there anything else I should do? I just want to let you know we got this many eggs. They just want someone to update in general that is listening to them and actually gets it and celebrates with them and is upset with them and all those things. And multiple people in your healthcare team can do that for you. But because we spend so much time with clients, like our initial consults are a minimum of 90 minutes and our review sessions are 50 minutes. We spend so much time with people. We learn so much about not just their fertility journeys, but about their lives, that I have had clients send me a picture on a Saturday morning of their positive pregnancy test before rolling over and telling their husband that they're pregnant. It happened.
I add that yet.
I'm just like, have you told your partner? Please. They're like, it's partner, Stef GP. And I'm like, wow, I am honored.
I'm gunning for that baby to be named after
you. Need it.
Anyone want to name that? No, just jokes. All right, that's brilliant. And you've gone and answered my other question. You know, how do you work with IVF doctors? I can, you know, you've answered that 1,000 times over in multiple different ways. You can see where the value of a fertility dietitian is. So, Steph, we're going to wrap it up. But tell us how can people? Because you have an amazing business. And I think this is partly your youth, really, is your mastery of the online world. Tell us a bit about the Dietologist and how to find you and connect with you and so on.
Yes, so thank you for this opportunity to share, do a little plug. So the Dietologist is a virtual fertility nutrition practice, which means we consult all over Australia, all over the world via Zoom. So you can be at home, nice and comfy. And we have a range of different one-on-one consultation options. So we have stuff from, hey, I just need help choosing a prenatal vitamin and maybe what other vitamins might be helpful for me, to, you know, complete nutrition coaching programs where we are touching base with you every week. We're holding your hand through it all. The other beautiful thing about our practice is that we're all fully trained in pregnancy. Most of our clients want to progress into pregnancy with us and they're like, don't tell me we have to go flip somebody else now. So no, not at all. We're trained in reproductive health, fertility and pregnancy as well. And we see a lot of people postpartum getting ready for baby number 2 as well. So we cover that whole kind of spectrum. So there's myself, and we also have 2 other incredible dietitians who have the same training as I do. So we have Kaylee Slater, who is doing a PhD in the field, and also Candice, who has 14 years experience as a dietitian, and she has special interest in insulin resistance and PCOS and gestational diabetes, which is an awesome asset to have as part of the team. So there's 3 of us. We do have after hours and some Saturday spots, but they're always the ones to go very quick. So
Perth. After hours in Perth is very different to after hours in Sydney. So the time zone.
Yes, my Perth clients are my morning clients because I'll be like 11:30 my time. It's like before work your time. Beautiful. Daylight savings definitely does us dirty a little bit on that front. But yes, it's definitely a little bit different, but we always make it work. And we also have a range of other do-it-yourself kind of products available. So we have online courses that you can work through at your own pace. We have downloadables. We have our Instagram page. We have our podcast, Fertility Friendly Food. I mean, and there's like over 100 fully referenced blog articles on our website as well. So really, there's something for everybody, but sometimes there's lots of stuff and sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Like, oh, where do I start with this person? Like, what's the right level to enter out with you? So if you're feeling a little bit confused, the best thing to do is to drop us a DM or hit the link in our profile and fill in an application. And then our practice manager goes through and kind of matches you up to the best clinician and service for you. So we kind of get a little bit of background about you and then match you up. So yes, you can find us on this Instagram page, is probably where we're most active, and also our website, thedietologist.com.au, and our podcast, Fertility Friendly Food, on all major podcast streaming platforms. And we will have to get you back on for season 4 next year, because yes, you are the breakout star of the podcast. I've had quite a few guest ones go bananas. So
face for radio.
Yeah. Somebody said that to me in high school. I was like, wow.
Oh, thank you. No, I had lots of fun, and look, I do love a chat, and I think the thing that I love most is which is you're very good at as well, as is our dietitian who works with us at Womb, Nick Nation, just really bringing it down to understandable language. The way you've explained it today, perfect. I couldn't have done a better job. And it really helps people to see where the fertility dietitian fits within the puzzle of their fertility journey. So thanks so much, Stef, for sharing with us. And guys, make sure you go visit her Insta page, _dietologist. I think that's how you put it, at ampersand at the beginning. Or, no, at dietologist. Oh my God, listen to me. Yeah, go and visit her page. There's lots of really cool reels. I'm getting good at reels. And yeah, let's definitely hook up again. And I think you guys absolutely fantastic model of care, and I know you've had lots of success too, which is really great to see. So thanks everybody for joining us. Yay, Fertility Nutrition Month as defined by Dr. Tamara Hunter.
Love it.
Mates. And in time, we're going to be having Nick Nation on as well to talk about some of his recent success stories that he's had in the fertility space. So make sure you come back and listen in. Thanks, Stef. Lovely to have you on. I just press stop now, don't I?
You just press the X. That's it.
I figured that's how you do it. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.